This is the story of a charming and wise housekeeper in her early 50s who falls in love with the 20-something self-made millionaire who hired her and finds herself pregnant with his child. Before we begin, please subscribe and like this video. It's a great help to us. On paper, Clara was a woman in her early 50s. Hearing that number, most people pictured someone settled into middle age, perhaps even nearing her senior years. But to see Clara in person was to doubt the number entirely. The word youthful hardly did her justice. She had clear skin, a fit physique, and a voice that bubbled with an infectious energy. Her cheerful and bright personality was her defining trait, a positive energy that naturally drew people to her. Clara had been married until a few years ago, but as the gap between her and her husband's perspectives on life widened, they chose to divorce. The decision brought her a strange mix of profound freedom and deep sadness. With no children to consider, she healed her heart by traveling the world alone. Free from all ties, she journeyed through various countries, slowly bringing to life the dreams she had kept tucked away in a corner of her heart. However, after a long period of wandering, she returned to the United States and felt a sudden longing for stability. The first step she chose for her new grounded life was to become a housekeeper. It wasn't a high-paying profession, but it allowed her to blend naturally into the daily lives of others and made good use of her energetic and meticulous nature. Some might have questioned her choice. Why work as a housekeeper at her age? But such opinions meant nothing to her. She needed to earn a living, and there was something deeply comforting about helping others manage their lives. More importantly, as she began to put down roots again, it felt like a positive and honest choice. Through a housekeeping agency, she found several opportunities. One in particular stood out: the home of a millionaire in his 20s. She'd heard he was a self-made man who had achieved immense success at a young age. A millionaire in his 20s. That's incredible, she thought, impressed. But she felt no particular awe or reverence for him, just a frank curiosity. He's young and rich. I hope we get along. The man she met at the interview was surprisingly unassuming. He wasn't draped in luxury brands or exuding the flashiness one might expect. Instead, it was his kind eyes and gentle way of speaking that left an impression. "Hello, I'm Ethan. Thank you for agreeing to work here. It's a pleasure to meet you," he said, greeting her politely. Clara broke into a wide smile and introduced herself. "It's a pleasure to meet you too, Ethan. I take great pride in my work, so if there's anything you need, please don't hesitate to let me know." The first impression was mutually positive. Ethan was respectful, never making her feel like just the help, and would often lighten the mood with playful jokes. Naturally, the walls between them never had a chance to build up. Combined with Clara's own cheerful and accepting nature, they quickly developed a comfortable rapport. As time went on, Clara would arrive at his home each morning for a set number of hours to clean and prepare simple meals. Ethan was often out for business, but on the days he worked from home, they would enjoy a cup of tea together and talk. "Clara, did you work out today? You have to tell me the secret to looking so young," he would tease. "Oh, stop it," she would reply, laughing. "I just do some light exercise every morning, drink plenty of water, and try to think happy thoughts." Their relationship grew into something more than that of an employer and a housekeeper. Even when he handed her the pay for the day, saying, "Thank you for all your hard work, Clara," she felt a warmth that suggested their connection wasn't just about money. Despite his immense wealth, he was never boastful and was always considerate of others. One day, Clara wasn't feeling well. Ethan noticed immediately. "Are you all right, Clara? You should see a doctor," he asked with genuine concern. "I've been a bit nauseous, and I have a headache, but I'll be fine," she replied. He immediately postponed his schedule for the day and insisted on driving her to a clinic himself. The diagnosis was simple exhaustion. The doctor said a few days of rest would do the trick. When Ethan returned from the pharmacy with a bag full of vitamins and supplements, he handed them to her and said, Please get better soon, Clara. Your health is what's most important. A small but powerful wave of emotion washed over her, warming her heart. Though their bond was warm, they each had their own lives. Clara occasionally took on other housekeeping jobs, and Ethan was constantly busy with his business. Yet whenever they had a spare moment, they would check in on each other, sharing the details of their lives more comfortably than some do with family. For her, he was a source of vitality she hadn't felt in a long time. For him, she was someone he could lean on for emotional support. Then, one day, news came that his girlfriend had been in a terrible accident. He had been in a serious long-term relationship, and talk of marriage was on the horizon. From what Clara had gathered, they were deeply in love, always planning a beautiful future together. But without any warning, the accident took her life. Clara was shocked by the news and couldn't begin to imagine the pain he was going through. For the first few days, he drank himself to sleep, only to wake up sobbing and blaming himself. The depth of his love was matched only by the depth of his shock and grief. People told him to be strong, but such clichés couldn't reach him. Unwilling to accept her absence, he lost all motivation. The house fell into disarray, and the refrigerator filled with rotting food. He wasn't eating. As the person responsible for his home, and as someone he had come to rely on, Clara couldn't just stand by and watch. She would go to his house every day, but he often wouldn't answer the door. When she did manage to get inside, he barely acknowledged her. The state of the house didn't seem to register with him. Empty liquor bottles littered every surface. The smell of alcohol filled every room. Clara would silently clean up the trash, open the windows to air out the space, and secretly pour out the remaining liquor, all while wondering, is this my place? Am I overstepping? But she was terrified that if she didn't, he would shatter completely. For weeks, he lived in a drunken haze. Clara would sometimes scold him gently. Other times, she would prepare a warm soup or tea. For a long time, his heart remained closed. She understood that deep sorrow doesn't simply fade away. So she gave him space, but continued to check on him regularly, tending to his despair not with loud emotions, but with a gentle tone and sincere care. One day, she entered the house and began cleaning as usual. He stumbled into the living room, his eyes still vacant, his hair a mess. When she handed him a glass of water, he said in a small voice, "Thank you, Clara." It had been a long time since he'd spoken, and his voice was filled with exhaustion, but she was relieved. It was a tiny thread of communication, a sign that something was shifting. That day, she cooked a simple meal and set the table. As she watched him force down a few spoonfuls, she spoke softly. "Just because she's gone doesn't mean you have to leave this life too. I promise you somewhere in this world someone wants you to get back on your feet. Maybe that's what she would want too." Hearing her words, Ethan closed his eyes and let out a long breath. Tears welled up, but it seemed he was trying not to cry in front of her. She gently patted his back. "It's okay to cry when you're hurting, but don't let it destroy your life. Believe it or not, I've had my share of hard times. I know that if you decide to be miserable, you can fall into a bottomless pit." After that day, his grief lingered, but he made an effort to eat the meals she prepared. The number of liquor bottles in his room slowly began to decrease. He wasn't going to the office, but he started responding to important business calls. The road to recovery was long. Sadness and depression don't just vanish one day. They heal slowly like a deep wound with a thorn still embedded in it. But Clara's presence, her sincere comfort, and daily devotion gradually began to register in his mind. One weekend evening, Clara finished her work and was about to leave. But Ethan followed her to the door and asked in a trembling voice, "Clara, if you're free tonight, would you have dinner with me?" She was surprised, but pleased that he was finally taking a step outside on his own. She readily accepted. That night, they sat in a quiet restaurant and shared their stories. He talked about why he had loved his girlfriend so much and the future they had planned. She talked about her divorce and what she learned while traveling the world. As they reflected on each other's scars, they sometimes teared up and sometimes they smiled. "To be honest, it's still so hard to accept that she's gone," he confessed, hesitating. "It sounds foolish, but I keep thinking she'll just appear from somewhere and say, 'I'm right here.'" Clara understood that feeling. Longing has a powerful grip, refusing to erase a person from your mind even after they're gone. She gently placed her hand over his. "I know that no words can truly comfort you, but we who are still living have a job to do. I think that job is just to live through today. All I can do is be here and tell you to be strong, and I hope that one day those words will reach you." That night, they felt a step closer. The bond between them had deepened into something more than just friendship, a profound emotional connection. It was too soon to use the word love, but it was undeniable that they had come to rely on each other. As more time passed, Ethan gradually returned to his life. He started attending business meetings, managing his company, and even planning new projects. People around him said he had made a miraculous recovery, but the truth was, it was thanks to Clara, who had stood by his side without fail. He knew this well, and a deep gratitude grew in his heart. One day he told her, "Clara, if it weren't for you, I think I would have been completely broken." His words were filled with a profound sincerity. As he wiped a tear from the corner of his eye, she smiled. "Oh, don't be silly, but I am so happy to see you looking like your old self again." But by this point, something more than just closeness had taken root in his heart. At first, it was gratitude for the person who had cared for him, then a sense of comfort that transcended their age difference. But over time, that feeling had blossomed into affection. He had never imagined he could feel this way. She was a divorced woman so much older than him. He could already imagine what people would say, but it was impossible not to follow his heart. Meanwhile, Clara felt it too. At first, she had only seen him as a heartbroken young man who needed her help. But with each passing day, as the darkness lifted from him and he began to smile brightly again, her own heart would flutter. Witnessing his recovery was an incredibly moving experience, and she more than anyone saw the beautiful soul he possessed. Her feelings were confusing, but a part of her already knew, "I've fallen in love with this man." One rainy evening, he invited her to dinner. Not at a restaurant this time, but at his home. He could have ordered takeout, but he said he wanted to try cooking something himself. He had little experience in the kitchen, but wanting to express his gratitude, he followed a recipe, and though clumsily prepared a meal with great care. Sitting across from each other at the table, they both burst out laughing. The soup was a little too salty and yet somehow bland, and the ingredients were chopped unevenly, but his effort was palpable. She found his attempt both adorable and heartwarming. "This might sound funny," he began, "but Clara, I'm thankful for you every single day. The world might see you as just an older divorced woman, but none of that matters to me. In fact, I admire your experience and your grace." His words, like an unexpected confession, sent a rush of emotion through her. She hesitated for a moment, unsure how to respond, but decided to be just as honest. "At first, I just wanted to help a young man who was going through a hard time. But at some point, I realized I was the one who was leaning on you. I just wanted to see you smile again. I wanted that more than anything." They looked at each other in silence. Outside, the rain fell harder. He reached out and gently took her hand. A tremor passed between them. The age difference, what people might think, none of it mattered anymore. In that moment, all that existed was the warmth they felt, a warmth that was healing the wounds in both their hearts. As more days like this passed, they became a couple secretly, but naturally. They didn't show it in public, but at home they were like friends, lovers, and family, all at once sharing every part of their lives. Then one day, Clara felt a strange change in her body. She had been tired before, but this was different. She was constantly nauseous and strangely hungry in the mornings. At first, she thought it was just overwork, but a nagging anxiety led her to a doctor, where she received a diagnosis she never expected. "You're pregnant," the doctor said, showing her the ultrasound. "It's still early, but you are definitely pregnant." Considering she was in her early 50s, this was a high-risk pregnancy, a significant challenge. She left the doctor's office in a daze, unable to speak. She was stunned, but at the same time a powerful joy bubbled up from somewhere deep inside. She had never once thought she could have a child at her age. When she called Ethan with the news, he was speechless for a long moment. The usually composed man could only ask, "Are you serious? Are you really serious?" a few times. Then he rushed over and held her tight. "Thank you, Clara. No, I should call you by your name. I can't believe a miracle like this could happen to." It was only later that they thought about their age, about who might be envious or who might scoff. In that moment, the shock and joy of a new life were too overwhelming. As he held her hand in silence, she cried. A maternal instinct surged through her, a fierce desire to protect this child. As the news slowly spread, people reacted in various ways. Some were astonished. "No way, in her early 50s, really." Others cocked their heads in disapproval. "Is that really okay with such a big age gap?" Some of his friends even tried to dissuade him. "You're still so young. Do you really have to get married?" But Ethan was unshakable. He told his friends with confidence, "She was the one who pulled me out of the darkness with more sincerity than anyone. Choosing who is truly precious in my life is more important than worrying about prejudice or what the world thinks. And this child is a gift from God." Clara, too, was not swayed by the opinions of others. "The moment I chose to love this man transcending my age, I expected this to some degree," she said, her resolve firm. "People can say what they want, but what matters is that we live our lives well together." They officially registered their marriage and held a small private wedding. Instead of a boisterous event, it was a simple ceremony where they exchanged vows of gratitude. A few close friends celebrated with them, and in that moment they expressed their thanks to each other through tears. "Meeting you was the best luck of my life," he told her. "No matter what happens, let's put this child first and live a healthy, happy life." Given her age, the pregnancy was not easy. There were several scares, and her doctor urged extreme caution. It was a critical time for her health, so she stopped working, and with Ethan's full support, she focused on nutrition and stability. His financial ability to provide the best medical care was a huge help, but what mattered most was Clara's own strong will to stay healthy and Ethan's unwavering emotional support. "The baby is growing well," her doctor would say at each checkup, "but it will be taxing, so you must avoid stress as much as possible." Clara was prepared to do anything for her child. She practiced yoga and went for light walks, always careful not to overdo it, and managed her diet meticulously. Most of all, every time she felt the baby move, she was filled with gratitude for the life growing inside her. Ethan rarely left her side. After important meetings, he would rush home to ask, "How are you feeling today?" and would prepare delicious, healthy meals himself. He changed their entire home environment to ensure her and the baby's comfort, creating a perfect sanctuary. During the 9 months of her pregnancy, they shared a roller coaster of emotions, sometimes crying from anxiety, sometimes laughing with pure happiness. They spent their time together dreaming up names for their child and promising what kind of parents they would be. "What's the first thing you want to do when our baby is born?" he asked. "I just want to hold her," she replied. "I'm going to hold her so much." He would smile and answer, "And I'll be right there beside you, loving her just as much." Finally, the day came. Rushed to the hospital in labor, Clara battled an intense, almost unbearable pain. But with Ethan holding her hand tightly, whispering, "You can do it just a little more," she could not give up. The doctors had been concerned about the increased risks due to her age, but remarkably, the entire process went smoothly. And at last, the sound of a baby's cry echoed through the delivery room. "Congratulations! It's a healthy baby girl," a nurse said, smiling brightly as she brought the baby over. Clara burst into tears, a mixture of relief at having delivered the baby safely and the overwhelming joy of welcoming a new life. With a trembling hand, Ethan reached out and touched his baby's tiny fingers. "This is really our child," he whispered, his eyes full of tears. "It's nothing short of a miracle." The baby nestled in her mother's arms announced her arrival into the world with a tiny movement. In that moment, despite their different ages, they shared the exact same heart, the heart of a mother and a father welcoming their most precious treasure. In the years that followed, they continued to overcome prejudice. When they went out as a family, they would sometimes receive curious stares as the mother looked so much older than the father. But they had developed a resilience that made such glances meaningless. What matters is that our family is happy. What other people think has no real meaning for us was their firm belief. The child grew up strong and healthy. Clara's wisdom and gentle nature were passed down to her, while Ethan became a solid, dependable father who cared for his wife and child with his unique wit and warmth. He had also achieved even greater success in his business, stabilizing it to the point where he could spend more time at home. Sometimes they reminisce about the old days with a smile. "Can you believe we started out as a housekeeper and her employer? I never imagined this would be our story." "I know," he'd laugh. "To think the man who called you by your first name to be polite would end up here. I truly never imagined it." And while they laugh, they both know that this life was a gift from fate. Some might dismiss their story as an impossible fairy tale, but they are real people, living a real life, finding true happiness in the sound of their child's laughter. They proved that love knows no age or background. The wisdom Clara brought was the knowledge that one should not hide or be ashamed of age and experience, but embrace them as a source of strength. Her positivity and empathy showed that true grace comes from within. And the lesson from Ethan was that true power to move people comes not from success or youth, but from a heart full of sincere gratitude and care. And so, through tears and pain, they found their happy ending. Their family was a foundation of love built anew each day. People ask what their child will think when she grows up and learns her parents' story. But she will surely know that she was born out of a profound blessing, and she will feel for herself the depth of the love that brought her into the world. Clara, who had traveled the world to find herself, finally began her true life back in her own country. And Ethan, who had tasted loss at such a young age, found his empty spaces filled by a gentle hand that came from an unexpected place. Together with their child, they welcome each new day. In a home filled with the sounds of laughter and tears, every small moment is precious. They have proven that life itself is a miracle because you never know where or how a flower will bloom. And they hope that the message they share with each other every day will one day find its way into your life too. Thank you for watching today. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and like.